Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got an update on the redistricting situation with the Democrats' strategy of challenging Republicans after Trump called up Greg Abbott of Texas to redistrict. And you can see the current state of redistricting. Texas, they are going through with their new districts. It's expected to add around 5 more Republican seats. Ohio will be forced to release new maps in September. That's part of their own protocol where they do the redistricting mid-decade. This is something that happens. They do redraw districts. Different states have different stipulations. Ohio is unique in the fact that they do have to redraw no matter what. And the thought with Ohio is maybe 2 or 3 more seats for Republicans there. Florida, you would imagine, based on the context of DeSantis and his good relationship with Trump and how aggressive he is as a governor, they're heavily considering possibly implementing 3 more Republican seats in that state. Indiana is considering. Missouri, I heard, was going ahead and going through with their redistricting, which is going to add 1 state, or it's going to add 1 seat. Indiana might add 1 seat. Kansas might add 1 seat. New Hampshire, I haven't even heard of that one. Governor opposed. California, they're going through with their special election, because in which the way the redistricting has to happen mid-decade for them, it triggers a special election after Newsom went ahead and proposed the new map. They're trying to cancel out Texas's 5 seats with 5 seats of their own for the Democrats in California. Maryland is considering, but I don't think Maryland can do it based on the situation with their Supreme Court already shooting it down once. And what would Maryland be able to gain? 1 seat at the absolute most. New York cannot do it for 2026. They're stonewalled. They're completely stonewalled. And we've got more stuff talking about, and it seems like this is a weekly thing or a monthly thing, where now the New York Times comes out with another article discussing how 2030 is going to be very bad for the Democrats based on migration in terms of people moving from liberal states or liberal cities into Republican states. And it's causing Republican states by the 2030 census. Remember, they already miscounted 2020. Republicans should have 2 more electoral votes. Democrats should have 2 less. But now in 2030, it's getting very, very bad. And even the conservative estimates, I guess in this sense, it's more so, in the context, it's more so liberal because they're positive for liberals, but it's a conservative in terms of the migration of people. Even with the conservative migration, people say, well, it's going to be at least 7 or 8 electoral votes for Republicans. But you've got other publications that say, based on the way in which the migration is happening from 2020 to 2025, and we push it out, it's not apples to oranges, because 2020 you had all the migration. With 2021, 2022, because of COVID, that's died down. There's a lot of people that moved to Texas, especially Florida, because of that. But Florida inevitably is going to add electoral votes in 2030. Texas inevitably is going to add electoral votes in 2030. California inevitably is going to lose electoral votes in 2030. Whatever happens with the other states, whether they gain one or lose one, I'm pretty sure Idaho is going to gain one based on the population influx they've had within the past few years. Republicans are set up, and with this redistricting now, to where you look at some of the, you take a look at, we can find this, you've got the Cook Political Report, GOP safe, likely, and lean seats. Lean seat is still like, what, a 60% chance of winning? This is the comparison, 2018, 2022, 2026. 2018, Republicans got stomped. And that caused the articles of impeachment to be filed because the Democrats regained control during those midterms. You look at where we're at now, and they've got 20 more seats, 195 to 215, from 2018 to 2026, that are safe, likely, or lean. Now, the midterms are still over a year away, but this just contextualizes where we're at in terms of these midterms and how much different it is from 2018. And you could think that, hey, we go from 195 to 215, and we've got a redistricting buffer on top of that hasn't been accounted for, where you've got 5 more Republican districts in Texas. Florida and Ohio are the 2 other big whoppers who could be adding 2 or 3 seats. Missouri's adding another. And then you look at Indiana possibly as well. Compared to the Democrats, they really can't do anything outside of having their special election and possibly getting 5 back in California. So they get 5 back in California to cancel out Texas. It's not going to matter. Republicans with DeSantis and in Ohio, they're going to be gaining at least 4 or 5. It's going to be a net Republican gain, even with that special election going through, and we don't know if it will or not, Trump is, I know, suing Newsom. That came out today. We'll see what happens with that. I mean, admittedly, it is funny, the fact that Trump personally calls Greg Abbott and says, you better redraw, and then sues Newsom for responding to it. Listen, this is how politics work. I don't know what to tell people, but you've also got, see, this is the New York Times new article. Remember, they did something last week. They were talking about voter registration and how good it was for Republicans compared to liberals, and now they've got red states to gain electoral college seats by 2032 due to population shifts. So their projections, I believe, are a little bit more conservative, but I understand why. It's mainly based off of, in between the years 2020 and 2023, there was a ton of migration to Republican states, and I don't think we can project the same movement levels in the second half of the decade, so from 2026 to 2030. So it's not like we're going to continue to see the same rate of increase in terms of population in Texas and Florida. And by the way, we're not even talking about the fact that illegals count in the census. Because imagine that gets eliminated. And all these liberals talk about, well, what about the we need to just get rid of electoral college. It's just the popular vote. Well, Republicans would win the popular vote every single election if they didn't import voters. If we stopped immigration, Republicans would win the election every 4 years just via the popular vote. They act like, it's hilarious how the Democrats act like they have this great party and they're so popular. You're popular because you import voters. When immigrants come into the United States and they become naturalized, it's about 70% rate they vote Democrat. And we've taken in more immigrants than any country by about 40 million in the last 50 years. Oh, but no, they're just so popular. Yeah, they're popular with people born in Guatemala and Venezuela, South America, Africa. They're very popular with those people for sure. But it's just funny how they act like they're this, and they don't get to do it as much because they lost the popular vote finally in 2024. But it's hilarious. It's like, let's actually realize why you guys keep winning the popular vote. It's due to immigration. But you can see projected to lose electoral votes in 2032. Illinois, I think it's probably gonna be 1 or 2 seats they lose. New York will lose. They've got Rhode Island. Rhode Island. This is what DeSantis was saying. Rhode Island, they was miscounted based on their population. So they already should have 1 less seat than they do right now. So they're going to lose 1, I think, for sure, unless they have some type of population influx or migration into their state. California loses 3, Illinois loses 2, New York, Rhode Island. I mean, these are solid blue states. Battleground states, Arizona becoming more conservative. They're going to gain 1. Georgia gaining 1. That you could argue they're getting more liberal. You've got Minnesota losing 1, which is a liberal. I don't think Minnesota's, I mean, is it really a battleground state? It's a Dem lean at the I would characterize it as not a dark blue, but it's a blue state, Minnesota. Pennsylvania, definitely a pure swing state. They're going to lose 1. And then the states gaining, they've got Texas gaining 3. They've got Florida getting 2. They've got Idaho and Utah. All of these states very, very conservative. And so Republicans winning, and this is a swing of 14 electoral votes in 2030. So not for 2028. This is a lot of the reason why Trump is trying to redo the census, at least in a certain way, in 2025. It's not because they're going to totally recount this, but more so because of the illegals and just in general, the amount of people during the pandemic we saw move into Florida, move into Texas, move away, move out of California, move out of Illinois, New York. I mean, imagine New York. If Mondani wins, you would figure you'd at least get 1 or 2 more just from the fear of commie leadership. You would maybe get another seat out of New York. So it'd go from -1 to -2 by 2030 if Mondani wins. And I think that's the situation you would be looking at. In a devastating development for Democrats' political future, the Electoral College is about to swing 14 votes in favor of Republican states after the 2030 census. And it's going to really, I mean, think about the pathways now to 270 for Republicans. They do have like an interactive thing that you can look at. This is Trump suing Newsom to block him from his illegal redistricting in California. You can see it says, presumably, if California does this, they will galvanize the Republican states that weren't already on board with aggressive gerrymandering. These are all states with Republican control. Yeah, but you have to think a lot of these states have probably been squeezed and redistricted already significantly. From what I know, it's Texas, it's Florida, it's Ohio, Indiana one, Missouri one, maybe Kansas one. By the way, I wanted to find this. Nebraska was not on that map. It was not bolded in, but you can see this report, Nebraska lawmakers weighing a redraw of the Democrat leading the famous 2nd Congressional District in Omaha. And it's famous because of the way Nebraska does, and the same thing with Maine, the way in which they do their general election. It is not winner take all, it is by congressional districts. So imagine if they're able to redraw this, and you figured they would definitely be able to redraw this, considering when you look at the state of Nebraska, the Republican wins by 25 or 30 points. It's different than Maine in that fact compared to Maine, where, yes, normally it's a one-for-one exchange in both of these states, to where the Democrat loses Nebraska but wins one of the congressional districts, so they get one electoral vote even though they lose the state. And then the Republicans lose Maine, but they get one of the congressional districts within Maine. Republicans only lose Maine by normally 9 or 10 points, at least the last few elections. Democrats get destroyed in Nebraska, so it's going to be a lot easier to gerrymander Nebraska if that's the way they want to go. I think every state should be the same electoral protocol, to where they're all winner take all. And I know they were trying to make a big push in Nebraska last summer to make Nebraska winner take all, where it's just all 5 electoral votes. And Maine was potentially going to follow suit. Right now, it kind of works out to where they both siphon one off of each other, the Democrats and the Republicans. But this would be big because they could try and redraw Maine. I'm not sure if they will even be able to redraw this Nebraska congressional district, but this has more so of an impact on the general election, because you're talking about taking one electoral vote from the Democrats and giving it to Republicans. And if it's gerrymandered properly within the districts, it's a guarantee 5 electoral votes for the Republican candidate in 2028. That's why this could be so big. And then the question is, what is Maine's authority to try and gerrymander themselves, or maybe swing it to make it winner take all so they can make sure they hold on to it? It's different in, the fact that Maine is a lot closer of a state, even though it's not a swing state. It is a Democrat state right now, but it's a lot closer than Nebraska is. Democrats win one electoral vote in Nebraska while losing the state by 25 points. Republicans win one electoral vote in Maine while losing the state by 9 or 10 points. So it's a bit different, and I feel like certainly you can potentially draw a very easy gerrymander here to make it to where Republicans would take every one of these districts. And I know they've been talking about this for a while. I think it should just all be winner take all when it comes to just the Electoral College in general. This redrawing would be bigger for the House, ideally, but because of the way in which they do their general election, because it is based on congressional districts in Nebraska, and it's done the same way in Maine, so I think I would be more bullish on the idea that the Republicans will take action in Nebraska and potentially redraw the districts, or make an initiative to make it winner take all, than the Maine situation. And so maybe there can be a one electoral vote advantage when it comes to 2028, which is really, besides the point, considering they did steal 2 electoral votes with the miscount of the census, which we know, and DeSantis has talked about that, Trump has talked about that, they've discussed it ad nauseum. So listen, my thought is that 2030, this is looking very, very solid. When you and it's so important. You have Florida now. Florida's a Republican state. It's 30, possibly more than 30 electoral votes now. That is not swinging. And so the electoral math is so much better for Republicans. And on top of that, you're adding more electoral votes and taking more away from California, and taking more away from Illinois, taking some away from New York, or I think it's 1 away from New York, 2 away from Illinois, 3 away from California. And the beneficiaries are not liberal states, they're conservative states. And it's also Idaho as well. So the math is looking better and better. The voter registration is looking better and better. The redistricting is looking better and better. All of the things underneath the surface are trending in the right direction for Republicans. Now, the Democrats are trying to respond. They were never going to be able to play tit for tat based off of the redistricting situation and the way in which they could draw lines. And just in 2025, there's no way they could keep up with Republicans if this really is a back and forth, which Newsom has suggested that he wants. Newsom can try and have his election. They can try and manipulate the question of the election, which I'm sure they're going to do. And maybe it'll pass, and maybe they'll get 5 more seats, and he'll try and claim that as an electoral win. But Republicans are already looking at other states, Ohio, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, to potentially respond. So, and the Democrats, you're talking about Maryland. Maryland can't do anything. New York can't do anything. Maybe Oregon is the only one that might be able to gain another for the Democrats. I mean, a lot of these states are already gerrymandered by both sides to a degree. The question is, can you squeak out another seat or two? And so I think the answer for Republicans in a lot of these states, like a Missouri, like a Kansas, like an Indiana, is yes. The question is, are they going to go ahead and go forward and do it and be galvanized around the idea that, well, Newsom, I mean, originally it was Trump, but a lot of this, if you go back to 2022 and 2020 congressional popular vote, which they love talking about the popular vote, Republicans won the popular vote and had a better performance in the popular vote relative to their representation. Now, sure, in the 2010s, it was different. It was the opposite, but 2020, 2022, and 2024, but especially 2022 and 2024, Republicans did significantly better in the overall popular vote than they did in terms of the actual representation they have within the House level. So it's important to understand that. And you're just trying to balance it and make it better. And so, yeah, there's going to be some redrawing of lines. And, you know, Trump said, you know, this is what happens. This is how Trump operates. He is going to make sure that we keep the House. This is just the reality of U.S. politics. And so, yeah, I mean, they can try and have their blue wave. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very hard because it's been redrawn. And look, I mean, you still have to have a decent, you know, Trump's approval rating is more than good enough right now. People think they look at his approval rating, 43, 44. It's way better than where Biden was, way better. And look, you can't get overzealous because we don't know about a real life situation, a current event that might happen. We know Roe v. Wade happened in the summer of 22. So there could be something that happens in the summer of 26. We don't know yet. We don't know where any of the geopolitical events are going to, you know, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran, the situation with China, the tariff situation. This is all stuff that we, you know, it's going to affect the midterms to a degree. But I mean, if the way in which they're able to redraw some of these districts, and even just looking at that Cook political forecast, I mean, they're like 25, 30 seats better than they were in 2018, in a better position. And that potentially is suggesting that's even before the redistricting. And those are House seats. Imagine what happens with the redistricting, Republicans versus Democrats redistricting, Republicans likely going to gain, even with the Democrats redrawing in California, and maybe one other state where they get one more. Republicans are still going to come out on top, because if you want to cancel Texas out with California, you've still got Ohio, you've still got Florida, you've still got Missouri, you've still got Indiana, you've still got maybe Nebraska, you've still got maybe Kansas. And what do they have? Maryland? They're not going to be able to redraw because of their Supreme Court. What do they have? New York? It's already been ruled they can't redraw. They've got like Oregon and California from what I see. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But either way, guys, that's just the current update. Make sure you like the video down below. Also follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.